Darwin Platform Group of Companies is one of the fastest growing diversified Indian conglomerates with global footprints. It is setting up offices globally and tying up with companies across the globe for multiple sectors. The company has ventured into real estate and construction, stockbroking and finance, arms and ammunition, mining, airlines and many other sectors.
Bitcoin's resurgence has once again captured attention, with the price of this cryptocurrency soaring to over $70,000 this month, and that's from $28,000 just a year ago. This marks a staggering rally of over 150% increase in this fiscal year alone. So what is the future for crypto? Is this another bubble that is building up, or is the rally based on some fundamental changes in the crypto assets market? What is in it for Indian investors, and what is the future? To answer these and more questions, I am joined by Sumit Gupta, co-founder of CoinDCX and Parth Chaturvedi, investments lead at CoinSwitch. But viewers, before I go to my guest today, let's listen into what commodities guru Jim Rogers, who was at the India Today conclave just the other day, had to say on the issue of cryptocurrency.
Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is at all-time highs. Between gold and Bitcoin, what would you buy?
I have never bought Bitcoin. I have never sold short Bitcoin. I do have a lot of gold and silver, as you can see. In my view, cryptocurrencies apparently are good trading vehicles. I have never bought nor sold either. I expect them all to disappear someday. Many of them have already disappeared.
Jim Rogers, one of the most well-known commodity gurus, expects cryptocurrencies to disappear someday. That's his view. But let's also listen into what Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman had to say on the subject at the same conclave.
Market fundamentals are moving at this moment. Is that leading the government also potentially to reassess its position on cryptos?
Reassess its position? Its position has always been this, that assets created in the name of crypto can be assets for trading, assets for speculation, assets for money making, assets for many other things. We hadn't regulated them then, we haven't regulated them even now, but they cannot be currencies is what I've always held, and that's the Government of India position also. Currencies are to be issued with the fiat of the government or the central bank of the day. So that is a different story. So if they're coming back, this resurgence, that is the asset which is being created for speculation or for trading or for whatever purpose. And it is still unregulated in India.
So viewers, two very diverse views, the Finance Minister reiterating India's position and commodities guru Jim Rogers having a go at crypto. But Sumit, I'll come to you on a very simple question which has been asked all around. What is happening to Bitcoin and what is behind this stupendous rally really?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, Siddharth, for having me here. I think very valid question, and a lot of people are wondering what led to this surge in Bitcoin prices so suddenly. So I think there are various mega trends that are coinciding together at the same time, right? I'll just highlight few of them. I think what has recently happened is that Bitcoin ETF approval happened very recently, and what that led to was unlocking access to trillions of dollars in capital. So a lot of this investment that is coming from big funds, right, like BlackRock, Fidelity, that is essentially the institutional capital that is now coming into Bitcoin. The difference between the last 2021 cycle and this cycle is that last cycle there was a lot of retail participation, but this time it is retail plus very large institutions who are bullish on Bitcoin, who are investing in Bitcoin for the long term, and that is leading to this massive rally. There is another very interesting event that is happening in April this year, which is the halving of Bitcoin, which leads to a supply shock where the Bitcoin mining reward gets cut down in half. And when your supply is constrained and the demand keeps on increasing, it also leads to increase in prices. And what we have seen historically in every halving event is that at the time of halving and 6 months after that, during that period, there is massive increase in prices of Bitcoin. So these are the two things which are large contributors to that. And of course, a lot of people are bullish on it because there is increasing clarity around regulations and prices, of course, going up. So a lot of retail investor participation is also happening. So last 1 year, we have seen very, very interesting movements in Bitcoin. And what we expect is that the same will follow to Ethereum as well, because Ethereum ETF is also in line.
Okay. Parth, I want to come to you, and taking this forward, if you have any further reasons to add for the rally, and to tell our viewers how long do you think this kind of bull run is likely to sustain?
So, thank you for having me, Siddharth, and it's glad that we're having these crypto-related conversations on national TV. But I think the points that Sumit has mentioned, they are rightly on point. Like basically, it's a supply and demand game for Bitcoin. And for all viewers, please look at Bitcoin as a separate asset and rest of crypto as different. Bitcoin has established itself as the store of value or the digital gold narrative, and the reason for that is very simple. Its supply schedule is fixed. It is a scarce asset. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, and the way that supply is generated is already pre-programmed, in the algorithm. So because of that, we are going to see another halving event where supply of new Bitcoin that comes into the system is going to reduce from 900 per day to 450 per day. And what we are seeing right now with the spot ETFs, so the spot ETFs basically institutionalized the asset class. It has sort of gotten these big names like BlackRock and Fidelity, and the numbers are staggering. Like BlackRock already has 15 billion worth of BTC in their spot ETF. Fidelity has over 9 billion. These are some of the most successful ETF launches ever in history. We were, even the most optimistic crypto supporter didn't think that these numbers will be, possible in the first year. They have happened in the first quarter itself. So basically, you are getting almost 10,000 worth of Bitcoin being consumed by these ETFs every day, and only 900 being, produced in the market. Plus, we are going to see a supply shock, and that will reduce to 450. So price action has, followed. I don't want to make any predictions, but there are legitimate, institutes like Standard Chartered who recently revised their upward targets and have put a 150K USD target for end of the year, and 2025 targets are as high as 250K.
Sumit, Parth makes reference to the Stanchart projection of $150,000 to the Bitcoin, going up to 250,000. But the question I have for you is, Jim Rogers says that the value will go to zero. And because this rally, the current rally, is being driven by institutions, as you have explained, more than retail, what are the institutions hoping to gain out of this? What could be the broader strategy for a BlackRock or a Fidelity to be participating?
I think very important question, and just to pick up on Jim Rogers' comment on Bitcoin and comparing it with the gold, I think for people of our generation, Bitcoin is the new gold. I have no fascinations towards investing in gold, like my parents do, but I don't. I have not invested in gold, right? So I think it's also about the mindset towards younger people adopting Bitcoin and looking at Bitcoin as the new digital gold. So
and since just on a lighter note, Sumit, to interject, Jim Rogers was here for the conclave, and he carries gold sovereigns and silver coins in his pocket, and he actually flashed it, and I think he handed it around. So I wonder whether you can carry Bitcoin in that set. Well, in your phone. Yeah. But Jim Rogers gave away some coins. Have you been giving away some Bitcoins, Sumit?
No, I think it's going to be very valuable, so I keep it to myself.
Okay, but continue with your point.
Yes, Yeah, so technology is changing very fast. I think people who have been in this space, they understand how the technology operates. And like Parth mentioned, limited supply. I think that Bitcoin is the only asset so far in the history which has a true limited supply, not gold. Bitcoin is the only asset, and that is mathematically programmed. Nobody can change it. Tell me one asset which has a true limited supply. So that is again, people have invested a lot of time into that, and there is a reason why people who have been bullish on Bitcoin, they have sort of studies all of those parameters. And I think for me, I think for me, Bitcoin is like essentially the store of value. If I want to keep my savings, some part of that or a decent part of that, I'd like to do that in Bitcoin. I think for institutions, right? We know what's happening in US with the US debt crisis. The belief in US dollars and how people want to hedge and where people do want to store their value. And Bitcoin is coming out as, because of all of these properties, coming out as a very legitimate, and now very recently with SEC approval, a very promising asset class where people can use and invest in as a store of value. And a lot of institutions realize that it's not like one person making a call. There's like multiple people research who have done that in the past and taken that decision, right? And it is one of the most successful ETFs. So there is definitely inherent demand for Bitcoin. Some people realize it earlier, some people realize it later, right? But every new asset class essentially leads to that. And institutions who have done that, if you ask them, there would be reasons on why they want to sort of hedge and why they want to diversify and invest in Bitcoin, because they believe that this is going to be more valuable in the long run and they want to take upside of that.
Sumit, Parth mentioned the stand chart projection and also for 2025 a much higher number. The question I have for you is, how high can Bitcoin rise further from the levels that we have been seeing? There has been a bit of a correction, but what do you yourself feel could be the limit for Bitcoin?
Yeah, so let me give you one analogy, right? Gold is at $13 trillion market cap, right? Bitcoin currently is at $1.5 trillion market cap approximately. If Bitcoin reaches the level of the same market cap of gold, it is going to be roughly around $550,000 per Bitcoin. $550,000 per Bitcoin is when it reaches the market cap of gold. I don't think that's going to happen very soon. It's not going to happen in 3-5 years. But if I, look in the long term, maybe 5-10 years, I don't think it's a distant reality. And that long-term projection, at least I have in my calculation. Whether it will touch 150, 250, I don't know. Depends on how many institutional investors come in, what sort of geopolitically what happens, what sort of events happen. There is massive potential of hyperinflation. A lot of countries have their currency getting devalued really, really fast. And you ask them, I think Uday Kotek sir has also mentioned it. Some of the people in Turkey, where they are seeing if someone has 10 lakh rupees in their savings, the moment you see next year it goes down to 5 lakhs, what people will do? They are not going to keep that in their, they are going to diversify. And a lot of people in different countries are doing that, who are going through this hyperinflation phase. So I think it makes a very strong case. And if we take all of these into account, it may potentially be more higher or maybe somewhere around that. But definitely in long term, the case looks very bullish.
Parth, Sumit says the case looks very bullish in the long term, and he's thrown a number which some might, feel difficult in even articulating, $550,000. I mean, I thought even a question
this is
around
when it touches the market cap of gold.
Where it touches the market cap of gold. So, Parth, just come in on that. Do you share this bullish view?
100%. And I just wanted to add like a couple of points on the gold narrative. So basically, as Sumit rightly mentioned, Bitcoin is the actual commodity which has a fixed supply. For gold, whenever prices increase, old miners start mining again. Like mines which are not profitable can pump out more gold. So even for gold, and you keep discovering new gold mines, you discover gold like under the sea, in the asteroids. So there is no specific supply cap on gold as such. Whereas for Bitcoin, we know for a fact that its inflation is going to be X, X number of new Bitcoin are going to be generated every 10 minutes. So I think that in itself is a huge value prop. And you've quoted like a lot of senior commodity experts like Jim Rogers. I think you should also play a quote from Larry Fink, who's the CEO of BlackRock. and he basically mentioned the same fact that around the world people are scared about devaluation. The US has printed more dollars in the last like 2 years than they have in the last 2 decades. So in terms of as a hedge against monetary debasement, Bitcoin becomes a very strong asset. And if BlackRock is buying it and selling it to its clients, it has over 6 trillion worth of assets under management. Even if 1% of that allocation goes to Bitcoin, which is what they're recommending in their all-in-one ETF. So I think that those numbers are the passive flow that we will get from such investments are going to keep bidding the prices higher.
Parth, the point that you make, and on a much broader basis, there was the gold standard that got broken. Now we have currencies which basically keep getting printed, and countries and economies are running very large deficit. The total accumulated deficit globally is the highest ever, obviously. And you seem to be hinting towards Bitcoin being a hedge against all of that. But that fundamental question which you must have been asked earlier as well, people can wear gold, they can pass it on. There's a certain sort of feel good factor in wearing gold. What do I do with Bitcoin, especially in the Indian context, and if I was an Indian investor?
So keeping aside, the physical attributes of gold where you use it for, jewelry or maybe even some electronics, I think gold's main purpose is as a store of value. And Bitcoin, because it is present in a digital sense, that's the only use case that it solves for. I think over and above Bitcoin, we have some innovations happening now. They are called layer 2s on top of Bitcoin, which can act as transactional layers. So Bitcoin as the network stays as the settlement network, whereas if you want to transact with somebody, you can use the layer 2s. And all of this innovation has happened in the last 2 years. Like in the bear market, people have been building tools on top of Bitcoin. So we will see more and more use cases develop for Bitcoin the network rather than Bitcoin the asset. And Bitcoin the network, again, I want to highlight, it is the strongest, most resilient, computational network in the world. It has more, computational power than Visa, MasterCard, and such likes. And it can easily, sort of replace them as a settlement layer for transactions happening on layer 2. But we will see this. This will take time. It is like with all sorts of new technology, it is still in its early stages. Probably in this cycle, we will see some more broader adoption.
Okay, broader adoption in this cycle. Sumit, I turn the attention of the focus of our conversation towards India and Indian investors. 2-3 years ago, when we started talking to you here at Business Today, and there was an absolute crypto bull run, exchanges were being announced and coins were being minted pretty much on the go, and you were one of the larger players. Between then and now, if an Indian investor were to ask you what they should do, how should they approach this as an asset class, considering what the regulator has said and done, what the government has said and continues to say, the government of India in this regard, what would you tell Indian investors?
Sure. I think from an investment point of view, what is more important before even putting some amount is just to read up more about it. For example, Parth and I have spent years of our time in the industry. We have, and then that is the reason why we are able to build conviction in this space. And I think for someone to even put their money, it's important to read up about it. I think a lot of people come in and invest in crypto with the mindset, oh, I'm going to invest $1,000 and I'm going to make it $5,000, $10,000 over next few weeks or months. I think that's absolutely wrong. That is not the way it happens. And maybe like in stock market, some stock may be multi-bagger, but like if you look at the broader trend, it's important to sort of know the fundamentals and know the reasons for investing before putting your money. Of course, you can start experimenting with very small amounts, but the most important part is to understand what's happening in this world, what's happening from a technology point of view. So that is very, very important to read up about it, to understand the technology fundamentally at the core level. Very, very important. Second is when people are investing in cryptos, I think just the very first video you saw, you've shown is if there are thousands of cryptos, I also agree that not all of them are going to be massively successful. Just like if you go 20 years back when websites were new, when internet was coming up, today internet is one of the most powerful invention in the century, right? But if thousands of websites are coming up, not everything is Amazon or Google or Facebook. There were few that came up and then they became a large company. They of course started with a small bookstore, digital bookstore. Here, if there are 10,000 cryptos, not everything is going to be massively powerful, and very few are going to be very, very successful in the long run. Many of them, potentially 60, 70, 80% of them may not even exist. I agree with that thought process. And that is where the education parts come into picture, where people need to understand what's happening from a technology point of view. It may take some time, but it will also reward people, right? So I think that is very, very important. And another point is, when people are investing, do not go for small caps. Like in stock market, there are blue chips or small caps, right? I think it's always advisable when someone is investing, stick with large market cap. For example, Bitcoin is $1.5 trillion market cap. It's very difficult to manipulate. It has a very strong, resilient, market dynamics. So start there. Start with Bitcoin, Ethereum, or the top ones, which are blue chip ones. The third thing, last thing, which I would like to call out is, a lot of people don't know when to time it. How much to invest, when to invest. They don't know the market is volatile. So there are various tools that are out there which allows people to invest systematically. Like people can invest some amount every week, every month, and those tools are out there. People need to, because they can't time the market. So if you have decided a small corpus, let's say 1%, then distribute it so that you don't have to worry about when to get in, when to get out. Just do a disciplined investing, smart investing, and at CoinDCX, we have built some of the products around that as well. But I think that is also one disciplined investing that people need to learn, rather than thinking about multiplying their gains overnight. That's absolutely wrong.
Parth, investing in crypto assets was all the rage 2-3 years back. It acquired a bad name. A lot of investors, including fresh entrants to the investment game overall, have burnt their hands. Given the regulatory restrictions, banking restrictions that exist as far as crypto assets, currencies, call it what you may, that exist in India, if an Indian was watching, a person based in India as an investor was watching our conversation, his question would be, can I participate in this rally, and if I do, what should I pick? Sumit makes the point, don't go for meme coins or all of those fly-by-night things. Stay with the big, more well-established names. What would you add to that, Path?
No, what Smith said is absolutely correct. And again, the advice goes out to all new investors as well as people who might have invested in the last cycle. You will see a lot of tokens from last cycles which have totally disappeared. And new narratives are being built in this cycle, and new themes are coming about. So if you are investing for, let's say, a 4-year time horizon, you have to do the basic research of understanding as to why you are investing in this particular token. Again, very simple advice for anybody who's starting Bitcoin, Ethereum. These networks has been around for a lot of, so in blockchain universe, if a network has been running without any hindrances for a long time, that's a good sign. Bitcoin has been up for 15 years. I think it has gone down once probably in its history, and that too in the initial days. Similarly, Ethereum also has stood the test of time, done a couple of big upgrades on the network while it has been running. So these two should be the core of your new crypto portfolio. And having said that, I think overall you should look at it as a part of your portfolio, not the only asset that you're investing in. So like they say, the 60-40 formula that works in most of these portfolio diversification strategies. Similarly, add let's say 2 to 5%. Again, I'm not saying big banks like Fidelity have put this out there. 2 to 5% of your portfolio can be in those. Consider crypto as the most risky asset class and invest in that. Specifically, if you have to invest in India as an investor, try to go through FIU compliant platforms like the two that are on the program today, like both CoinSwitch and CoinDCX. We are trying to comply with the laws that are being made on the fly. So again, I think regulation will come into place. It is only a matter of time, and it is going to be a globally concentrated effort. That's what India's G20 presidency also said, that everybody needs to bring a common standard, a common framework for crypto assets. And
Right.
I think as Indian investors, to be safe, just trade on compliant platforms and get your crypto exposure.
Okay, final question on the show, and Sumit, coming to you. We also saw the collapse of a large crypto exchanges and consequent investor confidence taking a hit. Plus, this was accompanied by regulatory and government policy crackdowns. So the question is, have governments across the world now come to terms broadly with crypto? Some of the countries that have banned it or taken other actions, is that over for now, and is there greater sort of understanding, willingness and acceptance as far as policymakers are concerned with crypto?
Yeah, so I think very important question, Siddharth. And I feel that policy, I think in India also, right? Totally agree with our Honorable FM's comment that it's not a currency, it's an asset class. The industry also feels the same. It should not be equated and both are complementary to each other, right? There's a particular case and use case that CBDC does, but that alone is not sufficient if you want to leverage the true power of blockchains and Web3. The second point is a lot of people sort of have started realizing that the importance of crypto assets, right, to the larger Web3 ecosystem. If you want to use blockchains, public blockchains, why is it important to have, tokens like Bitcoin, Ethereum to run that public blockchain network? And government across the world, developed nations have sort of came to terms with that it's very important to regulate it. You can't shun it out of the system, right? It's important to regulate it. Some of the countries have tried to do it, it didn't work. And now they are regretting it, that why did they ban it? So I think India took a fantastic call of not banning it, but rather move towards aligning the framework globally in a consensus manner. I think that's very, very important and 100% agree. I think that is the right way. If we don't approach it from that perspective, then there would be regulatory arbitrage, which is not healthy, right? I think governments across the world are also coming up with consistent AML and KYC framework, which is also a very, very positive sign, which gives very a good comfort to regulators across the world. What I'm seeing right now is that this year in 2024 and 2025, you will see a lot of countries coming up with exact sort of regulatory framework. A lot of that is happening in Europe and in the other. And I think India will also follow the suit, like where India will also sort of align itself with globally given frameworks when it comes to regulation of crypto assets.
Okay. So viewers, Sumit is saying that there could be a situation where in the next couple of years frameworks emerge and that will provide greater clarity and certainty to investors. Parth, the last question. We have seen in the past that whenever there are significant increases in asset values and bull runs, regulators start to get nervous. If Bitcoin were to go to $150,000, $200,000, $250,000, or perhaps go towards a gold market cap as well, wouldn't it therefore mean that regulators who for the past few months, past few quarters have kind of turned away from Bitcoin to other pressing concerns will wake up suddenly and say, oh, this is going out of hand, let's clamp down again? Is that a risk?
I would beg to disagree. Like, I don't think that's going to happen now because of the, the spot ETF approvals, I think is a huge victory for the industry. It is sort of legitimization of crypto as an asset class. And now you can like actually have it in your, your normal broker accounts in the US. You can just buy like the Bitcoin ETF and you have like a custodian who is holding it as per law.
Can Indian investors access these ETFs?
If you have like a foreign brokerage account via some platforms like Vested, I think you can. But there are like limits to it, like 7 lakh above that you have to pay.
Is there a possibility of an Indian ETF, Sumit, to you as well and Parth? Is that possible?
I think, so even in the US, what happened was this happened after courts had to intervene. And courts had to say that, because Bitcoin was treated as a commodity, you could run an ETF on top of it. So unless in India we have that clarity as to where this asset falls, is it a security, is it a commodity, building a tracker product on top of that will be very tough.
Sumit, will it be tough or is there a possibility?
I think we have to solve a lot of problems before that to be able to reach that stage where we are talking about ETFs. I think India, we can't be in a position where US and other countries are regulating it, legitimizing it, institutions are investing. In India, the situation is different where there is no proper, regulatory framework, high taxation. I think the disappointment there is also like if it gets late or if India does it 3 years down the line, and if we realize that, okay, this is actually a legitimate asset class which is going to be adopted, then people will have to sort of get in when the price is like very high, right? And that essentially comes at a cost. And I think having this where in US there are like ETFs and all of that, in India, at least it should be sort of a structure where if people want to do that, they should be able to do that with proper risk disclosures. And ETF, I think I feel it's a little far off. We need to solve basic problems in terms of defining and regulating. Regulator needs to be there who supervise the industry. I think all of those needs to be done in a fast manner if you want to sort of lead in the sector globally.
Just one point, Siddharth, like in terms of global regulation, Europe's MICA is going to be the North Star. Europe within the EU, that is going to start applying this year onwards, where they'll actually give out licenses to exchanges, custodians, and all those players. And even closer home, like in Dubai, they have a dedicated regulator called VARA, which is Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority, is focused only on virtual assets. So I think globally things have started to move, and we will start seeing a more positive action on the regulatory front.
Okay, that would be a good thing to happen, because as we have seen in the past, products, innovation and investor interest sometimes goes far ahead of regulation, and in the crypto space and in some other spaces we sometimes have seen the Wild West running on. But clearly with this rally, those questions will come back again, and for Indians who have dabbled in crypto in the past, the manner in which they can again participate in this is very different. I think a little more convoluted than it was in the past, but clearly Bitcoin is here to stay. And with what I have heard on the show, viewers, I am wondering what the next headline would be. Would it be 100,000? Would it be 150,000? But if and when that happens, we will come back with more analysis and insights from founders and innovators like Sumit and Parth. Thank you very much for your time with us today. With that, it's a wrap. We'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye.
Two more stocks that I want to discuss with you, Mitesh, before we thank you. One is Zomato that I discussed with Gaurang, and the other one is Paytm, both of which we got Gaurang to talk about. These stocks have been on an up move. Fourth day in a row when Paytm is on a rise. Again, a 4% move is again what we have seen in the